Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Happy holidays and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network where we celebrate elevated listening. My co-host, DIANN BOEHM, has the day off. We wish her well and look forward to seeing her again soon next week. Our show today is fashion, travel, and fitness, and this is our new time slot. So please make note of this so that you can follow us. And today we have our expert correspondent, Sandy Adams, joining us. She's just back from 3 trips. I can't wait to hear about it. And we're going to be talking about Christmas markets, river cruising, and travel trends. Let's welcome Sandy Adams. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day so far. Hi, Dr. Jacalyn. How are you?
Hello. I'm super excited to see you. You always bring such fabulous energy and great information. And Sandy, as you know, people are planning trips. People are tired of being in the house. They want to get back to traveling. And you're such a great beacon of light because you go out on all these amazing trips and you come back and tell us about it. So I know that you've just completed 3 trips and I just want to spotlight you and hear about them. So tell us more.
Well, let's do one at a time. So we're going to start with the first trip I went on, which was in October. And it was a transatlantic cruise that started in Rome. So my sister and I, who's also my business partner, we flew to Rome, had a great couple of days in Rome. And I did want to mention this really fabulous excursion that we did while we were in Rome. And that was, we visited the Colosseum at night. So it's a very limited type of tour that you only have, I think the max is 20 people that are on it. And I think we only had 15. Anyway, we started with wearing these virtual reality glasses, which I have never worn before. And it was really freaky to be in the dark and to have these glasses on and to kind of see people walking past you. So I had to kind of shift that aside. And it was really cool what they were doing because they were placing you in the middle of what would have been when the Colosseum was active. And so you see all these, Romans and gladiator dressed up people walking around. And this is like all a virtual reality thing. So it was really kind of cool because it gave you the feeling of actually being in the Colosseum when there were things that were happening. So that was a really neat intro. And then from there, we had an archaeologist that took us and gave us a tour of the Colosseum. And we got to see some areas of the Colosseum that in past visits I had not seen. And she explained to us during the course of the tour that during the pandemic, when the Colosseum was closed, it really gave the archaeologists some opportunities to do some more things. And they're working on restoration of different parts of the Colosseum. And they're still doing archaeological discoveries there. And during the course of this, they were able to put in these lighted pathways so that these tours could happen at night and so that they could work at night. There were actually people that were working on the Colosseum when we were doing the tour. Anyway, it was really amazing seeing the technology that they had at the time of the active Colosseum. They actually had an elevator, that was worked with pulleys and things like that. And just, the different technology that they had and using the resources that they had, I found to be really interesting. So we did that tour, and then we just kind of hung around Italy and Rome, and we probably walked for, I don't know, 20 or 25 miles over the course of 2 days, just kind of walking around. We had visited the Vatican previously, so we didn't do it on this particular trip. And then we had a wonderful ride from Rome to the port, which is about an hour and a half away. And there we started our experience on the Celebrity Apex in their retreat. And the retreat is their suite area. It is made up of the suites. There's you have your own restaurant, own pool area for retreat guests. There's a really great bar, and you can order lunch items at the pool area for the retreat. There's this wonderful retreat lounge, and they have afternoon tea every day, which I must say I went to several times because their scones were really good. And it was just a really great experience being in the retreat and experiencing that. And I try to do different things when I go on my different trips, because that way I can share with you and I can share with my clients exactly what they can expect in these different experiences. So that experience started with a separate check-in from everyone else. The suite guests had their own area. We checked in about 5 minutes. There's still the requirement there to have a COVID test for the transatlantic cruise. So we submitted our results for that, and then we were on our way. And the cruise made 4 stops in Europe before it came across the ocean. We started, first stop was in Valencia, and then from Valencia, we went to Malaga, and then we went to Gibraltar, and then to the Azores. And I got to say, Gibraltar was my favorite. It's just one of those places I've always wanted to go to, and I didn't realize how cool it was. Gibraltar, as our guide explained, is about the size of Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 at Heathrow Airport. So we're talking really small. It's like 1.5 miles long and 1.5 miles wide, basically. So it's really small, and it shares the border with Spain. Spain gave in perpetuity this bit of land to the British in, I think, the late 1700s, early 1800s, and the Spanish have been trying to get it back ever since. But the agreement was in perpetuity. So Gibraltar is British, but people go back and forward over the border to work in both directions. And so the coolest thing, though, was that you actually can walk or drive across the runway for the airport, because the island is so small, or the piece of land is so small, that the only way to get from kind of one area to the other would be to go across the runway. So it's kind of like a railroad track crossing, that when there are planes coming in, the gates come down and they give time to clear, because it's a pretty significant distance between the two barriers. So they give plenty of time to clear, and then the planes land or take off, and then the gates go back up again. So it was really, it was quite beautiful. And unfortunately, it was a bit hazy that day. So it was very hard to see Morocco from there. But I was able to get some pictures, and I could just make out the mountains in Morocco that was just across the water from where we were. And then from Gibraltar, we had a day at sea, went to the Azores, spent a day there, and then we headed across for 6 days at sea. And a lot of people ask me, 6 days at sea, doesn't that, make you crazy? And don't you want to get off? And these ships are so big, and there are so much going on, that there's plenty of things to occupy your day, and I kind of forget I'm at sea. Other than, when I'm outside and, then I obviously see that I'm at sea, but there's just so much to do that I find it to be really relaxing. Um, you're not rushing as you tend to do when you're going from port to port, particularly in Europe, because there's, so much to see. And also, I just find it to be a really relaxing experience. And I really enjoy doing them. So that was my first trip.
Wow.
Did you have some questions?
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking this trip sounds like it's incredible. And I love the fact that you have these unique experience when you talked about the afternoon tea. I don't know if you said afternoon, but the tea.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is fabulous. And a question I have for you is, when you go on a cruise, do you always go on the same cruise line, or do you try different ones?
No, I do try to do different ones. I do have, so prior to becoming a travel advisor, I had been going predominantly on Royal Caribbean and Celebrity. And so I had some cruises, that were booked prior to me becoming a travel advisor. So some of those I'm still doing. But Celebrity has come out with some great new offerings. And so this was the first time I was on the ship. So this really gave me an opportunity to experience this ship. In 2018, Celebrity launched their Celebrity Edge series, which they created completely different ships from their previous offering. And you'll appreciate this because you love to work out just like I do. And they have on most cruise ships, the track, kind of goes around the pool deck, and you have to go around like 25 times to get a mile. And it's really annoying. On the Celebrity Edge series, the track is actually a separate track. So you're not, except in one place, you're not really sharing it. And it's on two decks. So you'll start on deck 15 and you'll walk up, so it's kind of a ramp up, and then you come around the front of the ship, come along the side, and then it goes around to the other side of the ship. You go down back to deck 15, through some different areas on the ship, and then you come back around. So you can do that. I think it's 4.5 times as a mile.
Wow, I love that. And you see that you see the sights while you're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much more visually. When I run, I like to be visually stimulated. So there's more to see than going, this little loop around a pool deck. So that's one of the things I really like about it. They have a great gym with lots of equipment in it. They have the TRXs, and they have Peloton bikes. And they also have at least one, sometimes two fitness instructors. So they're also running classes during the course of the cruise. So you can do yoga. They do a stretching class every day. They do an ab class, I think, every day. And then they also have cycling classes and some other things during the course of the day. So, for people who really want to keep up on their fitness and all, when they're traveling, lots of opportunity to do that. That's one of the things I really love about of the Celebrity Edge series ships.
Sounds fabulous. I'm thinking to myself, wow, I want to book a trip myself just to run around the track.
Exactly.
Now, when you're traveling, do you find, because I'm thinking myself, do you find that you're eating more or eating differently than you would normally?
I do. And that's something that on my trips this coming year, I'm really going to work on. So on this last trip, we wanted to experience a lot of different things. So we ate up, as I mentioned, we were in the retreat and they have their own restaurant. So we ate up there. So I was trying different things. When people are on vacation, most people aren't really paying attention to calories.
Right.
So, and then they had some other venues, that we were trying. So where possible, I usually started out with a really good breakfast. and, tried to eat a very light lunch, because I do get hungry. And especially when I'm working out and things, not eating is not a good thing. So, I do try to eat, but I try to eat in moderation. So I'm kind of saving for the things that I like. But, the scones get me, and, dessert. So I always say that, that's part of the reason why I work out, is so that, you can enjoy those desserts. Um, so, but that's one of my goals. And, um, yeah, we usually try to get steamed vegetables with each of our meals, and we try to eat a salad, with our meals. And in terms of portions in the dining rooms and all, I think the portion sizes are really are moderate. It's not like eating in Texas, where the portions are always huge.
Right.
So in that respect, I think that, they kind of promote a little not as heavy eating. And so, yes, I mean, you can absolutely control what you eat, if you're willing to do it.
And it sounds like there's a great opportunity to work out if you like to work out. And you said you walked probably 20 or 25 miles. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's interesting as well. Do you find on this particular cruise, are there singles there, or is it mostly couples or families? What did you see?
So on this particular cruise, I think that so this ship actually has, and I may have the number wrong, but they have like 12 to 18 single cabins. So for solo travelers, I should say, because there is a huge market for solo traveling. So this class of ship has actually built solo traveler cabins. I actually met a couple of people that were traveling on their own. And there was only one family that I saw with kids. And they were not, I think they were a European family. So I'm not sure if the kids were out of school or if they took their kids out of school. But other than that, it was mostly adults on this particular cruise, because it was 14 days. Plus you're flying over to Rome. So depending on how much time you're spending in Rome, you're talking about a 2 to 3 week vacation. And so that's particularly in the fall time frame, a lot of families are not able to take that kind of time to travel. So on these kind of cruises, you tend to find there were a lot of professionals that were on there, because people can work remotely now. So several of the people that we met, during the day, they were doing some work as best they could, as was I. And, and then they were enjoying themselves on the trip. So this, you had probably skewed to an older demographic, not a lot of family. But I think that was the nature of the cruise versus the ship.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think I just want to point out to people that these ships have the ability for Wi-Fi, so you can be connected if you still want to work the whole time you're there. You could, right?
Yeah, but that's not really anybody's goal, But I mean, there is some merit into having a mobile business, like being a travel advisor. I'm able to do that. And then, as I mentioned, we met a few people, who had their own businesses as well. And this was kind of their slow period. So they were able to, work an hour or two and then enjoy themselves.
Yeah, that sounds like a great setup. All right, let's hear about this second trip.
So we arrived in Florida on November 12th, and on November 11th, the day before, was the kickoff of the Cruise Planners annual convention. And I love going to those, because we always get to hear about the new technology that Cruise Planners is introducing to help our clients. And we got some really cool new tools that in a future broadcast, I'll talk about. And then we also get to meet with suppliers and hear about up and coming things in the travel business. There's lots of new land opportunities, and the cruise lines speak, and the land companies speak, and the all-inclusive. There's a panel of all-inclusive resorts. So we get to hear from all facets of travel. And generally, what Cruise Planners does for their conventions is they set the dates in conjunction with a cruise lines when they're doing it with a cruise line, because last year we were at an all-inclusive resort. But this year's was lined up so that we could also go on Norwegian's newest ship, which is called the Prima. So they kind of set up the dates that way. So we had 3 days of conference, and then the second cruise that I went on was on Norwegian's Prima, which for Norwegian, this is a completely different cruise experience that they are offering their guests on this ship. And I did actually have some clients who cruised on it, I think on the third sailing of this ship. It was launched in late July, beginning of August of this year. So the Prima is really introduced a lot more outdoor space. And the primary area for their outdoor space was their boulevard, which went completely around the ship. And so if you walk that whole area, I think I figured out it's almost a third of a mile. So you do it 3 times and you get a mile in. And off of this boulevard, there was a variety of things. So they had on either side, they had some infinity pools. So you could be in this infinity pool and actually be looking over the edge of the ship. So they had the infinity pools. They had an area that had all kinds of sculptures in it. So it was like you were walking through a sculpture garden. Several of their restaurants actually had outdoor seating on this deck, which is something that I haven't seen on other cruise ships. And I thought that that was really a great idea because one, even prior to the pandemic, who didn't like eating outside at a cafe? It just kind of gives you that more relaxed feeling than sitting in a restaurant. And when you're on a cruise ship, you're on vacation. So I really loved that part about it. And they also had some areas where they had couches for people to, just sit in and chat. And then they had these really cool swings that you could be in. And so they really created this wonderful outdoor space. Now, the space is great when the climate is nice, because as my clients who, traveled on it in August, they had gone up to Norway and it was a little chilly. So they didn't get the opportunity to enjoy the outside area as, much as they would have liked. So I loved that part about the ship. The second thing I really liked about the ship was, and Norwegian has this on other ships, they have an actual racetrack on the ship that you can get into a race car and go around. And I think it goes 2 or 3 decks on the top. So really interesting experience. I did try it. I am not one of those speedy driver people. So I was the slow one kind of going around the track and people were going around me. But really fun experience. They had a miniature golf area. They had ping pong. They had foosball. They had air hockey. And a couple of other things up in this kind of outdoor fun deck, which was really great. And then there was different areas. So while the race cars were going around, you could stand there with these like light guns, similar to some of the things that you see at Disney on some of the rides. And you could shoot at these targets that were on the cars that went by, and then you'd get points. So if you weren't in the, actually interested in doing the racing, you could do this other thing. So that was cool. They also had these two amazing slides that went down both sides of the ship. One kind of went straight down, and you're kind of in a tube and you go down. The other one was more of a traditional slide. So lots of adventure type of things right there on the ship, which was neat. The last thing that I thought was super cool, I really liked that they had different venues for food and different types of things, which just made for an interesting eating experience. It was not like I had seen on other ships. So I thought that was really interesting. And then they also had lots of little venues for music and comedy also throughout the ship. Sometimes they were a little bit hard to find unless you knew they were there. But I just love the idea of the little smaller venues. And then, like most cruise ships, they had a main theater. And I saw one of the productions that they did. We were on there for 3 nights. And one of the productions that they did was Donna's Summer, kind of like a bio musical of Donna Summer, which was extraordinary. And at the end, they invited the people in the first several rows of the theater up on the stage, and then a DJ kind of rose up out of the floor of the stage, and they proceeded to create a disco out of the theater. And they laid the seats all flat, and then the seats, just the rows of seats just slid up under each other, kind of like bleachers do. And as they got a section out, then they would bring out these couch things from the side. They set up tables in the middle, cocktail tables. They brought out some portable bars. And in the matter of about 15 minutes, all the seating on the main floor of the theater was gone, and it was turned into this amazing disco, and people could just dance the night away. So it was really incredible. Really thought that was neat. The other thing that we had the opportunity to do off the ship was we went to their private island. So we had one day at sea, and then we went to their private island. Lots of things to offer there on their private island. They have a whole area of villas that you can rent. And I was really surprised at how relatively inexpensive the villas were. And the price of the villas included food and towels. And depending on the type of villa that you had, you could have an air-conditioned area, bathroom in there, plenty of seating. So the villas held anywhere, I believe, from 6 to 12 people. So when you split the cost among the number of people, it was relatively inexpensive. And they had a whole section of this island to themselves. The other section of the island had beaches that you could go on. There was a small hiking area. They had zip line going on there. They had wonderful food. I was really impressed with the food. And if you had the drink package on the ship, it carried over to the island as well. So that was just a really cool experience. And in the Caribbean, most of the cruise lines do have a private island. And so I'm really trying to make sure I see all of those because, again, that's something that I can share with my clients. So that was my experience on the NCL Prima. Their new ship is coming out next year. It is going to be it's called the Viva. And then there's one after that that's coming out a year or two later. So this is their new entrance into the market. So
the things you do are so unique and special. It's incredible experiences. We have a comment from our friends in Uganda. Hello. Thanks for the show. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is fabulous. So, Sandy, these unique opportunities that are available, are they something that everyone who goes on this cruise can do or not?
Oh, absolutely. Everything that I have talked about are things that that all the guests are able to do.
Okay, so when someone is looking to book a trip, you can make suggestions based on some of these um, interests that people have, whether they have hobbies or they're adventurers. You can make suggestions that if they go on this specific type of cruise, that they'll have an opportunity to do X, Y, Z, right?
Exactly. That's one of the things I spend time doing upfront when I'm first contacted by a client is to, find out the kinds of things that they're interested in. If, if it's a couple, let's say, or a group of friends, but all adults. I mean, one of the things I want to find out is, if they want more of an all adult experience, because many of some of the cruise lines cater specifically to families, and some of the cruise lines have ships that cater specifically to families. And sometimes when adults go away, they just don't want to be around a bunch of kids. And so I try to find out exactly, what type of experience that they're looking for. Um, and then I can match them. The same thing if they have kids, if they want their kids to, have activities going all day long, then I'm going to match them with a cruise line where they can participate in activities all day long. And the most of the cruise lines have stuff for the little kids, and then younger kids, and then they have teen programs as well. Which is really great because it gives kids an opportunity to interact with other kids, and then at the same time, the adults can enjoy, some time with adults. So I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and she was telling me how like her kids just kept begging to go back to the kids area on the ship that they were on. And, it almost got to the point that, the parents felt like the kids didn't want to be around them. So it was kind of funny, that kids really, enjoy all that interaction, and they have professional people that are doing that, that are doing the kids activities. I also want to mention that some of the cruise lines, also have a focus on children that may have special needs. And they have certified autism programs for kids that, have autism because of the sensory things that are involved, for kids who have that. They have people that are experienced in dealing with that, so that, the kids, regardless of their abilities, are able to have a great vacation. And isn't that what it's all about, being inclusive and having a great vacation?
Absolutely, yes. And we have another comment, which I think is important to address. One of our team members, hello, Maria Eduardo, nice to have you with us. She writes, I love cruises, but get really bad motion sickness. Anything you can offer here? Is there any solution?
Absolutely. I always carry with me C bands, and those are bands that you wear on your wrist, and they put pressure on the point in your wrist that kind of helps um, control, some of that motion sickness. I've also seen people wear patches, and I think on one of my cruises previously, I got patches. What I do before every trip, unless it's going to the Caribbean, is I go to the travel clinic, make an appointment, go to the travel clinic. I tell them all the places I'm going to be visiting. They do a really good job of pulling out information on each of those spots that we might be stopping at. In terms of, what kind of diseases you could encounter. And, they'll tell you if you need any particular shots. Like some of the places that you go to in the South Pacific, they recommend that you take malaria pills, because in some places malaria is active. And that's also the time that I, would address if you get motion sickness, they can give you medication for that. Like common one is Dramamine, the patches, and those kinds of things, so that you can really enjoy your cruise.
Is that helpful? Let's see what she has to say. She writes, I've tried everything. Well, I don't know what to say about that, Maria. Sandy, I think you gave some good
points. I don't really know. I've not experienced, I've not had someone who has said they've tried everything and it doesn't work. That's kind of a tough one. So one idea I would have for Maria is she might want to consider river cruising. And I say that because you're on a river and you get very little motion when you're on a river cruise. It's a very different experience than an ocean cruise, because river cruises are more about the destination. But I think that that could be worth trying. The other thing is that, depending on the ship, the ships that they're building today have much better stabilizers, than the ships that they have built in previous years. So another idea would be to try doing a short cruise. Most of the cruise lines are offering them out of Florida. So 3 or 4 day cruise, maybe on a larger ship, and see if you're having that same experience. So those would be a couple of recommendations.
Fantastic.
And I'd be happy to help Maria with all of that.
Yeah, she writes, nice to know. So thanks for sharing that. That's very helpful. I want to make sure we get to the other trip that you were going to talk about today.
Okay. So the third trip was a rescheduled trip from last year. Dr. Jacalyn, you might remember that I was supposed to do this Christmas market cruise last year. And a few days before we were supposed to leave, it was canceled because, unfortunately, COVID had reared its ugly head the end of November of last year, and most of the Christmas markets shut down. So the cruise line decided, because of that, and because Austria said they weren't going to admit foreigners or tourists in for a period of time, that they canceled the cruise. So this was rescheduled. It was a land and cruise experience. We started in Prague, and we did the Christmas markets each place that we went. And the Prague Christmas markets were probably about 80% food and about 20% of, stuff, Christmas things or other things. And my former exchange student lives in Prague, and she said that she'd noticed over the years that it had shifted, and she felt that the change to more of a food-based thing was because people were wanting to be more social, and they were making more money if they sold food and drink than when they were selling things. So the stores were all open as long as the markets were open. So I thought that was really kind of cool, that I could, walk into a toy store at 9 or 10 o'clock at night and it was still open. So we had a fabulous time there in Prague. Prague has a Hamleys toy store there. And I know that you have a lot of listeners and watchers who are into all things British. And Hamleys is this old British toy store, which in London, it's in a building that is 7 stories high. in Prague, it was only 3 stories. But it's just an amazing toy store that has just about anything that you could think of. So we made a visit to there, and of course did not walk out of there empty-handed. So we spent a couple days in Prague. Then they bused us from Prague to Nuremberg, and we experienced the market in Nuremberg. That is one of the largest markets in Europe. And again, a lot of food, a lot of drink, a lot of Christmas things. So I found that in Germany, that the Christmas markets were about 50% food and 50% of Christmas things and other things, to buy for the holidays. So we visited there. Then we went to a town called Regensburg, and they had a couple of different markets there. 2 of their markets there were for things that were handmade by the people who were actually in the booths or who had rented the booths, because sometimes they had some other people helping them. And it was just nice. I was able to buy these really cute earrings. I wish I had brought this along, but this one gal took bottle tops, those metal bottle tops, and she put inside the bottle top a button. And then on the back side of the bottle top, she put a little clip. So she made these really neat buttons. And then there was all kinds of jewelry, and we talked to the 2 people in this booth, and the gentleman that was in there was actually from Heidelberg, which was quite a distance away. And I asked him, are there markets in Heidelberg? And he said, yes, there's markets, but he particularly wanted to be at a handcrafted market. And so that's why every year he came down to Regensburg, and the 2 of them shared booth space. So we visited the 2 handcrafted ones there in Regensburg, and then went to their main market. And then we made a stop in Passau, and we stopped one other place. I can't remember the name of it now. Darn it. And I didn't write it down. But we went to the place where the Silent Night was actually written and sung for the first time. And we went to a concert. We went to the church where it was sung for the first time, and 2 people sang it how it was originally sung, with just like a guitar and a gentleman singing it, all in German. So after he sang through all 7 verses, then he did 1 verse in English so that everybody in the room could participate. But it was really amazing because this whole church had been restored, and you just kind of felt like this was how it all started with the song Silent Night. And so we visited there. We went on to Passau, and we went to Salzburg to the market there. We did some, well, I'll just talk about the Christmas markets first. So we did as I said, the Salzburg market. It was way, way too crowded. So we just did a couple of touches and goes and got out of there. And then we went to Vienna was our last stop, and we were there for a couple of days. And over the course of those days, we visited 5 of the 13 markets that they have in Vienna. And in Vienna, we thought that the markets were laid out better, so you could walk around, even though they were large and they were crowded. You just weren't packed in. And I particularly noticed in Vienna that they had a lot of things that you could buy as gifts that weren't necessarily, snowmen, nutcrackers, the Christmas kind of things. So I kind of saw the markets in Vienna as those markets that you'd really go to do your Christmas shopping if you lived there. And they had all kinds of attractions. They had a carousel, and they had a small Ferris wheel, and plenty of food and drink. And they had an ice skating rink in this area. So it was pretty fabulous, their main market. And then they had all these little small markets all around. And it was interesting. I kind of picked up on that people would just go to the markets in the evenings to get something to drink and hang out with their friends. So that was more of what the locals were doing. So the Christmas markets I thought were fabulous. And that was the point of this particular cruise. So did you have any questions about Christmas markets?
I've actually never been to one. It sounds like a great experience. I'm wondering, you have all of your things that you purchased. How do you get them back to the ship?
No. Yeah. So, yeah, we both packed a bit heavy because it's wintertime, and sweaters take up more room than when you go to the Caribbean. So I ended up buying a small, and I'm glad I found this bag. We saw a Samsonite place in Vienna, and I went there, and they had a collapsible bag that folds up into a little thing about this big. But it opened up to be like this big, and I was able to. I got a couple of more fragile things. I put all of those things in there, and I carried it on. And
That's a great idea.
I checked my other carry-on because I had, a rolling carry-on that I had brought with me, but I just went ahead and checked that and put all the other things that, weren't, if they were breakable, I wasn't, concerned about it. I picked up. So when you go to the Christmas markets and you're drinking the glue wine, which is a hot mulled wine, and other drinks there, they give you make a deposit on the cups. So you can return the cups and get your 3 or 4 euros back, or you keep the cup. So we collected one in each country, just to say that we had them. So those I threw in my suitcase. But yeah, that's what we did. And another gal, I told her about the Samsonite place. So she went over there and she got herself another bag too. So that's what we did. So yeah, so that's how we got the things home.
You can have like a little competition, who can fill up their bag.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of lessons learned from the river cruise itself. So I wanted to spend a couple of minutes to talk about river cruising. So river cruising is very different from ocean cruising, and not just because you're on a river versus being in the ocean, but a river cruise is more about the destination. So on a river cruise ship, you're going to have a main dining room, and then you may have a couple of other, depending on the ship, they may have another restaurant or two on the ship. The cabins are going to be smaller than the cabins on an ocean cruise ship, depending on the type of cabin that you get. I mean, I normally get a balcony cabin when I'm on a river cruise. I'm sorry, on a ocean cruise, which are over 200 square feet. These were a little bit smaller, a little more compact, and they had a small fitness center actually, which had they had free weights, they had a treadmill. And it's interesting, they kind of build the treadmill in the floor. So it's like you're walking level with the floor when you're on the treadmill. And they had a bicycle, and they actually offered some classes. They had a wellness person on the ship, and they did classes. They did either yoga or abs every morning in the lounge area. And then the entertainment, either they'll have somebody on the ship who maybe plays the piano, and maybe sings. They had karaoke on this particular ship. And then when we're in the different stops that we make, they bring in local entertainment, which is really gives a completely different flavor to it. So you're not going to have a big disco thing going on. There's no gambling on the ship. There is some gambling in some European locations. And a lot of there's not really shopping on the ship either, because everything's about the destination. And on a river cruise, you can make a couple of stops in one day. And we did that. In one case, we kind of left in the morning. We made a stop, then we got back on the ship, and then we headed further along the river to our next location. And that's pretty common on a river cruise as well. It's also, we learned, particularly with it being a Christmas market cruise, it was a little more casual. We found that a lot of people weren't getting dressed up in dinner. And so from a packing perspective, we ended up overpacking because we had bought like a nice, couple of sweaters to wear during the course of the cruise, and things like that. And that took up a lot of space. So we got most of our clothes worn. But I know now for the future, when I recommend to my clients, that you don't have to bring quite as much, because it's a little more casual environment. And it's really a great opportunity to interact with your fellow travelers, because another huge difference between ocean and these river cruises is that, on the ship that we were on, I think if it was at full capacity, it held 156 people. And it wasn't at full capacity, so I think we had 132 people. So you're going to have somewhere between 100 and 200 people on the ship. Each of the cruise lines include one excursion at each location. And typically that is some kind of walking tour that's focusing on the history and the culture of the particular port that you're at. And then you have the opportunity to sign up for other types of excursions. And so I'm really a huge advocate of river cruising, because I think it really gives you the opportunity to experience places. Oftentimes they stay overnight at a location, so you're able to go into town in the evening and just kind of experience the town at night. One of the places that we did that in was we stopped in Linz. So we stopped at Melk during the course of the day, and we had gone to this amazing monastery that is now still a monastery, but also has a school in it. And it was just beautiful. The library was beautiful. Everything about it. The property was wonderful. So we had stopped there for a few hours, and then we went on and we stopped at Linz, and my sister and I got off the ship because I wanted to go for a walk. And, we just kind of walked into town and, walked about 1.5 miles, 2 miles in, and, turned around and walked back. And that's not the kind of thing that you can often do on an ocean cruise, because they're usually there during fixed times, and you're generally moving at night. So very different experience. Highly recommend it. They have them in Europe. They do the Nile. There's also river cruising in Asia. So lots of opportunities to experience culture and history via river cruising.
I love how you provide all these fabulous options for people and give the differences. You are quite knowledgeable, and it's not just from reading about it, you're actually doing it. And you've had these incredible experiences all over the world. We have a global audience. Are you able to work with people anywhere?
So I'm only able to work with people in the US and in Canada. And that's for a couple of different reasons. Part of it just has to do with the whole credit card thing. And for instance, in certain parts of Europe, a cruise line, markets to that particular, that country, and they have certain offers that are available to, let's say in Germany, that aren't available here in the US. And so the cruise lines don't necessarily like a lot of that cross thing, but there are some exceptions. For instance, if, someone has friends, they're planning a cruise and they have friends that live in another country, that are going to join them, I might be able to assist them in terms of that. The other thing is that we're only able to do travel protection for U.S. residents and Canadian with the travel protection that we provide.
Well, it's good to know, who you can work with so that people out there listening and watching know. So you are just truly the expert correspondent. And I love when you come here and I just think to myself, wow, I've got to get out of this room and go and start traveling, which we're going to talk about as well. So what do you have is coming up that you can share with our audience, and when will you be back so they know that they can tune in again?
Okay, so I'm doing 2 cruises, and I don't just do cruises. It just seems like lately I've been doing a lot of cruises, and I also am a full service travel agency. So, and my client base is about halfway split between cruises and land-based vacations. So I do both. But the upcoming trips that I have in January happen to be 2 cruises. One again on the Celebrity Apex. My husband and I are going on a cruise together. And then I'll be joining my sister with a group that she travels with every year. And we're going to be on the Celebrity Beyond. The Celebrity Beyond is the next ship in the Celebrity Edge series. And so it'll really give me an opportunity to compare Apex and Beyond and see what neat changes that they've made with Beyond. Because what these cruise lines do is they create one ship and it's going to be a series, and then they figure out what works well and what maybe didn't work as well. And so when they're developing the next ships in the series, they're constantly improving on their offerings and, changing things with the space and all of that. So I know that they've made some big changes to the Sunset Bar and the rooftop bar area. So I'm really interested in to see how they've made those changes. So that's in January. And then the big trip that we're doing this year, and we have a group for, is we're doing a Australia, New Zealand trip, which is both land and sea. We're doing a pre-cruise days in Sydney, Australia, and that area. Then the cruise is actually sailing out of Sydney round trip, going to New Zealand. And so that's a 10-day cruise. And we'll make a stop at 5 or 6 different ports in New Zealand. And then we'll be returning to Sydney. And then some of the group is going to go on to Cairns and go to the Great Barrier Reef and visit some of the other things in that area before returning home. So that'll be about a 3.5 week trip.
I'm back here drooling, by the way. I'm like, sounds fabulous. Well, I appreciate you coming here and taking the time to share all of this information. I know that I'm super excited, and we thank our audience. We also have someone else joining us. Hello. Nice to have you today. So please do reach out to Sandy. Let's put up her contact information again. And for those of you who are on the radio listening, or you're on a podcast, you can reach Sandy through her email address, through her website. You have a beautiful magazine that you send out as well. And
absolutely.
And I'd love for people to sign up for your newsletter. So can you give people the information of how they can contact you?
Absolutely. So my phone number is 571-297-7676. My email is sandy.adams@cruiseplanners.com. And you can always go to my website, which is escapesandgetaways.com. And there's a chat function there. And there's also an opportunity to click and send me information of what you're looking for. And I have fabulous things on the website, all the different exclusive offerings that we have. There's a section for, say you don't really know where you want to go. You can go to that section on the website and just explore around and pick something that you want to do, and then reach out to me and we will put together a fabulous trip for you. And I do everything for my clients, from if they're booking a full trip, I can help them with the air. I take care of the transportation. I make sure that all their payments are made, and answer all their questions, and give them a travel package with all the documents and everything that they need to be able to go and have a fabulous vacation.
Thank you, Sandy. My hat is off to you. I'm grateful that you're here and our expert correspondent on travel here at USA Global TV and Radio. I wish you happy holidays, and I look forward to hearing you tell us about the future trips, and also continue to follow you on social media. You are on all the platforms, right?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and on Google as well.
Fantastic. So everybody, please go and follow Sandy on social media. She posts really fabulous trips, pictures from her trips, just to get you excited, thinking about where in the world you want to go next. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks. Have a good one. Happy holidays to you too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And thanks to each and every one of you who engage with us. We really do appreciate it. Please do reach out to Sandy. We have people who come here and give their time, their expertise. They provide education, hope, and inspiration. And we want you to connect with them. That's why they're here. So go over to her social media, Sandy Adams, look her up, also email her, work with her, plan your trip, get out of your comfort zone and go somewhere new, try something exciting. All right, we are going to say goodbye for now. Our next show is coming up. It's Talking Heads with Dr. Madeline Chan. So I'm excited for that. Please do join us. We have back-to-back shows all day today. After that is the United Kitchens with our celebrity chef and certified nutritionist, Ricky McKenna, followed by the Listening Mentor with the Harley Street stress expert, Caroline Heward, followed by pet psychic Amina. Thanks again. We'll be back soon.